The strategy I chose to share is fluency-oriented reading instruction, and I originally learned about it in Chapter 11 of our Best Practices in Literacy Instruction textbook. It was developed to help students meet the requirements of reading grade level text even when they are below grade level, and its goal is to get them to read fluently and comprehend the text. Originally, it was designed to be used with the whole class, but it can be adapted to be used in a small group setting or with 1 to 2 struggling readers. So far, I've used it during our intensive reading time, where all of the first grade teachers break up their classes and send them to different rooms to be ability grouped. And it was in a small group setting. By the end of the week, the students were reading more fluently than I had ever seen them read before, and they thoroughly enjoyed the activity. I chose to use a story from our anthology, but teachers can also use trade texts, which can be especially helpful for science and social studies, or their basal readers. When Forey was originally researched, it was done with second graders, but it can be adapted to any grade level as long as the teacher uses appropriate texts. It's important to note that the text must be challenging for the majority of the students and that the text needs to be read for 20 to 40 minutes over a 5-day period. Fluency-oriented reading instruction is directly related to the Common Core Standards in Reading foundational skills. The repeated readings of the text help students read with accuracy that supports their comprehension and understanding of a text. In order to set up fluency-oriented reading instruction in your classroom, the first step is to choose a text that will be challenging for most of your readers and that can be read over a 5-day period for 20 to 40 minutes. It is also important to note that fluency-oriented reading instruction has a home component where students are required to read the text at home as well. So below is a sample lesson guide that I plan on using with my intensive reading group after we get back from Thanksgiving break. The students in my intensive reading group are anywhere from a level F to a level G, and this is a level H book that is in our anthology, so it will be challenging for a lot of them. The book is called Winners Never Quit, and it's about a young girl who quits every time that she doesn't make a soccer goal. The first day of the lesson is really just an introduction to the book. So teachers can do typical introduction activities that they would normally do. I chose during this lesson to introduce some challenging vocabulary. The words that I found challenging in this book were stomped, dribbled, and grinned. So we would review those and use them in sentences before we started the reading. When you're done doing your introduction activities, you would have the students follow along while you read the story to them. While you're reading, you can stop to discuss different comprehension questions and different events that are happening in the text, such as, has there ever been a time that you wanted to quit and why? And asking the students why Mia wants to quit. When you're done reading, I would introduce a story map to my students. We've been working on retell, and I have this anchor chart in my classroom just to help them remember the characteristics of a good retell. So we talk about the setting, the characters, the problem, the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and the solution. So just reminding them that while they're reading, they're looking for these features. Since the first day was really just an introduction, at home that night, students will just read a text that they have chosen for 15 to 30 minutes. On the second day, when students come in, they'll take out their anthologies and review the story, Winners Never Quit, from the day before. Once they've had a few minutes to look back in the text and review what they had read yesterday, you're going to do an echo reading. So you will read a page and then the students will read it back to you. Once that is done, you can include different comprehension questions. Also, you could include these throughout the reading. That night, students will take the books home and they will practice reading the text to a family member. Just like the second day, the third day, students will come in and take out their anthologies and look at the story. At this point, they should have at least read the story 3 times. So they should start to get familiar with the story. Today is the shortest day of instruction, and all that you need to do with them today is corally read the story. If there's time, you can read it more than once, and you'll start to notice students who are excelling with the story and students who are struggling. For the students who are struggling and need more practice, they can take the book home again and read it to a family member, and other students can read a text that they choose. On the 4th day, students are going to partner read, and the teacher can choose how to assign partners, either by ability group or students that they believe will work nicely together. And students are really there to support each other if they're struggling with a word or a passage. So once you have assigned partners, students will get together and they're going to alternately read the pages. So student 1 would read page 1 and student 2 would read page 2, and so on. If there's time, students will read the text a second time, but they should read the other set of pages. Again, at home, students who need more practice with the story can read it, and others can read a text that they have chosen. So the last day is doing the typical extension activities that you would do with students after you read a text. My students are going to complete a story map that requires them to fill in details, going back to my anchor chart, about the setting, the characters, the main idea, and the beginning, middle, and end of the story. The teacher can also use this time to complete running records for students, and I would like to incorporate my digital component. I would like to have my students read the story to an app such as StoryKit or I Tell a Story, and then begin to create a digital library so they can always go back and listen to themselves reading that text. So that is what a typical fluency-oriented reading instruction lesson looks like. There is also something called wide fluency-oriented reading instruction, which involves reading 3 separate texts per week instead of 1 and follows some of the same procedures. So I hope that you enjoyed learning about fluency-oriented reading instruction. I know that it's been really successful in my classroom, and I hope that some of you can use it in yours.